That's it. That's it right there, Carl. The dent is out.
Yeah, I like it, Guy.
That's it. Perfect.
Okay, you'll just keep on going.
I can barely
This is the last chair.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, friends. Can we have your attention? Ooh, nobody ever pays attention to me like that. Welcome to the 10th anniversary conference of the Computer Center for Visually Impaired People on Visual Impairment and Employment Policy and Practice. Welcome to Baruch, everybody. We have one heck of a day for you today. That's all I can really say. And we have a packed schedule. So we are going to start immediately. I have a thank you list here that I want to go through right away. Before I do that, I always think of things. Before I do that, let me just ask, for how many people is this your first conference? Make a little noise. Oh. And for how many people is this your 10th? Is that all the same people? I'm not sure. Anyway, great. It's fabulous to have everybody here. You swam here. I'm very impressed. So good. So let's get rocking and rolling. What I want to do is mention all the people to whom we have to say thank you, and it does take a village to do these things. And what I would like to request is that we hold the applause until the end, and then we have one grand mega explosion of thanks to all of these people. So first of all, I do want to thank our sponsors, which is first of all, the Baruch College Austin W. Marks School of Public and International Affairs, the New York State Commission for the Blind. David Bertzel is here from the School of Public Affairs. You'll hear from him. And for the Commission for the Blind, Brian Daniels is here. You'll be hearing from him. And Rizicki and Associates, Craig Wolfson is here. Are you here, Craig? He is here. He just doesn't want to admit. But you'll be hearing from Craig at lunchtime. And the Hidden City Cafe, Veronica Romero is here. The Jolson Family Foundation, Barbara Fife, representing that foundation. We're very grateful to her. And Mr. Jonathan Reynolds, an individual who wasn't able to be with us today. And then a new one, the Orcam Corporation. So we're thrilled for all our sponsors. We also want to thank Blind Line and Michael Cush with all his customer service team, who I understand registered about 60 people for this event, which is pretty fabulous. I want to thank the Conference Planning Committee, Gus Chalkias, Brett Eisenberg, Roberta Felice, Debbie Fitterer, Barbara Fife, Judith Gerber, Peter Herrick, Nancy O'Connell, Bill Reed, Lisa Saunders, and Vern Vergara. And the CCVIP Advisory Board, who are down here in the front, Iris Rosen, Matthew Krieger, Philip So, Sandra Cooprat, Craig Wolfson, and Jane Thompson. And also CCVIP staff people who are here who weren't actually on the committee, Rick Fox, Madeline Gilbo, and Mohammed Rihan. And we need also to thank Chris Catino and the conference staff, because they're always so helpful and they really make this day work. Also BCTC, Baruch College Technology Center. They are a fabulous bunch of people. Victor Peralta and his team, we're extremely grateful to them. Have I left anybody out, Bill? Let's say thank you to all of these people. Wonderful. Now, Let's see, as far as other small pieces of business that people need to know, please silence your electronic devices. Please. And if you are going to have conversations on those devices, please take them out, because there's just too much going on in here. Also, I am going to mention just briefly that we did put in your folders this year a little note that invites you to contribute to this event, because we've managed for all these years to keep this free for participants, but heaven knows it costs to do it. And so we really need to invite people who care about this and want to contribute to absolutely do that. So you can contribute. You can give it to any CCVIP staff person. They will not leave town. Or there will be a basket at the registration desk so that you can do that. So, and also in terms of being able to converse on social media while you are here, first of all, if you want to get into Wi-Fi, the network you use, choose the guest network, then open your browser, and the password, if you're doing that, will be CCVIP. And if you want to tweet about the conference or talk about it on Facebook, you can use the hashtag CCVIP Conference 10. I think I didn't mess up any of that. All right, I think we're ready, unless anybody in our team tells me that I forgot something serious. Good. Then I want to immediately get to our speakers who are going to present some brief but wonderful to hear opening remarks. We are expecting Borough President Gail Brewer. We suspect she'll be here. She's not yet. And so we are going to begin right now with somebody who really does fabulous work for people with disabilities across the city. And in his administration, he has really brought departments of the city into an increased understanding about how our issues affect everybody. Our issues are, we are part of the community as a whole, and he really helps the various city departments make that happen. Please give a welcome to Commissioner Victor Calisi, Mayor's Office, People with Disabilities.
Hello, everyone. How are you today? Great. Thank you for having me here. 10 years, the double digits now. There's no turning back. It's great to see this conference continue, and I love the theme, going the distance, your life, your way, because we have a responsibility to ourselves to make sure that we do it our way and make sure that people with disabilities are understood every way, shape, and form. And that's how come I'm committed to making New York City the most accessible city in the world. And CCVIP has been a great partner in everything that the city has done, educating people in city government about what their needs, wants, and concerns are, and how important it is to make sure that our issues are being taken care of. Specifically, they've worked with us just recently. We've placed disability service facilitators in agencies across all cities, agencies across the city. And they range from the Department of Transportation to Cultural Affairs to the Police Department, Fire Department, Parks Department, and the list goes on. And they are there to help us, people with disabilities, navigate the city and give services that the city is supposed to give people with disabilities. So they're there making sure that happens. And CCVIP was there to be able to hold a training for these disability service facilitators and make sure that they understand the issues that are there. So their continued support in helping us understand with what everybody needs is very important. And employment. Employment is the key factor. We, people with disabilities, live in poverty. And the only way to lift us up is through employment, because we're either unemployed or underemployed, and that has to stop. Yes, yes. And we've recently created a program called NYC at Work that's going to help people with disabilities get employed. And city government has a role to play in this too. And we need to make sure that people with disabilities are employed. We set up Business Development Council, and we're looking for qualified individuals. And I must say that person with a disability should not be hired as a person with a disability. They should be hired because they are qualified for the job. Being qualified is important, and people with disabilities shouldn't be hired and stuck in the corner. People with disabilities need to be educated. So I encourage all of you to get internships, to build your resume, to get those skills, go back to college, whatever it takes to make sure that you're employable is important, because we need to put our best foot forward, our best wheels forward, our best white cane forward, whatever it may be, and we need to be qualified, and we need to show up and be able to be employed. As Riziki would say, it's very easy to hire people with disabilities, and we need qualified people to do that. So I want to congratulate you on your day and have fun at the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. And speaking of employment, how perfect is that? Our next presenter of opening remarks is the gentleman who empowers the New York State Commission for the Blind, which, as we know, is critical to helping people find employment. Please welcome Brian Daniels.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. Friends and colleagues and leaders in our field and emerging leaders in our field, in our community. If you've come here today for inspiration, if you've come here today to hear experts in our field about the hottest topics, technology and otherwise, you've come to the right place. This is the place to be. The largest downstate gathering of rehab professionals, consumers of service, students, and leading stakeholders in the field. It is so great to be here today and to see all of you. Dr. Gorgi, thank you for inviting me once again to your party, your fiesta, your soiree. You too are among our established leaders. Your leadership in the adaptive technology realm goes far beyond your home base here at Baruch and far beyond technology alone. Your fine reputation around the state is one that engenders widespread respect, and your role as chair of the executive board to our Commission for the Blind distinguishes you among our leaders as well. I pause for you, Dr. Gorgi. Today, and together, and once again, we stand on the threshold of change. New federal legislation, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which funds and enables our work at the New York State Commission for the Blind, is changing our culture daily. We continue to reestablish our business enterprise program, and you'll see Kimberly Barnes here, our district supervisor, along with the licensed manager, Yvonne Batchmore, at the display table. Please look for them as we continue to emphasize opportunities in our program and our business enterprise program here in the city. And as we continue to understand and implement our new federal legislation here in New York State, our commission continues to pursue inclusive services and other innovations so that the 87% customer satisfaction rate our commission enjoys, thanks to you, continues to move upward. We recently conducted a survey of our service providers assessing policies and practices for inclusivity, including to LGBTQ service recipients, so that we will continue to stand tall among the commissions for the blind around the nation. And in response, we will offer training from highly qualified sources to increase our capacity for full inclusivity across the board so that our commission remains a leader in the nation. Our success relies on all of you. Improvements to our systems are inspired by those in this room, and our success is directly linked to stakeholders' input that continues to impact our system positively. We are working with the task force as we roll out our new contracts next year for adaptive technology centers. We're hearing from key stakeholders so that we can improve this beyond belief. So we are really looking forward with unprecedented stakeholder input to have the finest adaptive technology centers next year in the state of New York. And finally, and not leastly, A shout out to our Commission for the Blind staff, to Peter Herrig for his work on the committee, Jason for your leadership, Eckert for your leadership down in New York City, Sean Chinchance in Harlem, Paula Napo Ficaro in Long Island, and your staffs, and Anna DeReyes in White Plains. We thank you so much, and we are once again proud to be a sponsor of this wonderful event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. And now, for our last two presenters, we're coming right home to Baruch College. I first would like to introduce to you my boss, you better be nice to her, the Associate Dean of Continuing and Professional Studies, who's been such a supporter of our work and this event. Please welcome Ann Clarkson.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say welcome back to our alums who have been here for a good long 10 years. Congratulations on your participation, and more importantly, congratulations on the 10th anniversary. And welcome to the new participants. It's every year that's an inspiration to come to this room and see it's not only filled, but always filled to a new capacity we never quite knew we could get to. And it's an inspiration to see everyone here. And it's my job to take a moment to recognize just the commitment of the people in this room. And I just want to recognize that everybody in this room takes people from the impossible to the possible, to the probable, to the reality. And you should take a moment, recognize that throughout today as you're going to the amazing programs and sessions, and you're meeting our all-important sponsors. And I do want to stress, please go to the sponsors. They make this possible. Another reason that it's free. But it's through people like Karen, her team, and you in this room that you provide services to people who desperately need it. I'm pointing out the obvious to everyone, but it's also in a time that funding is not so secure this year. Each year I say that, but this year it's exceptionally challenging, as we all know. But by your participation here, we know that the programs are available. Karen's team every year pulls it off for better and brighter in constantly changing times and constantly challenging ways. And I just want to congratulate Karen and everyone in this room for coming today. And I hope you enjoy the sessions. I hope you speak to the sponsors so that they come back next year and the year after. And I just want to thank everyone for being here, and welcome to Baruch College.
Lastly, I would like you to hear from someone who has been a friend of the center for, I think, at least 20 years, 20 and something, and spent many, many years on the board, and just a very critical person to our growth and our success. I would like you to hear from Dean David Birdsell, who is Special Assistant to the President of Baruch College, and who is also the Dean of the newly named and expanded Austin W. Marks School of Public and International Affairs. David, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, everyone. It is so wonderful to see all of you here, and it was so wonderful to see so many hands go up for first-time attendees. A very rough estimate, I think it was roughly 41.3% of you are first-time attendees at this conference. And that speaks to several things. It speaks to the success of the previous iterations of this event, 9 of them and now counting the 10th. It speaks to the needs that CCVIP addresses. And because that 41.3% of you are new to this event, I want to take a moment to brag on CCVIP, because you may not be familiar with all of the things that it does. The Associate Commissioner mentioned some of those things, but CCVIP, the Computer Center for Visually Impaired People, has always featured technology at the forefront, but it's not just about technology. It's about technology as a guide. It's about technology as an interface. It's about a ladder to careers. It's about unlocking possibilities that are easier to do with some forms of those technologies. It's about shaping technologies. Karen works with engineering teams around the country and is responsible for the development of talking tactile maps that some of you have seen in train stations here in New York City and around the country, the Talking Tactile Tablet series that opens up a world of possibilities for education for people who might not have been able to access those lessons previously. She does usability testing, helping people who are visually impaired to inform companies that are trying to create materials about the adequacy of their designs and how to push them further. Never forgetting that the purpose of all of these things is not just to do something that's technological, digital, ginchy, nifty, and new, but to unlock human potential, to be inclusive, to make a society that is more genuinely equal and accessible to everybody. And if I think about service provision in this and in any other social arena as an archipelago of islands, each one of them specializing in different approaches to possibility, this particular island in this particular archipelago is one of those things that makes it possible for people to move from place to place and to map their own futures. We are enormously proud here at Baruch College of all of the work that Karen and her team has done over the course of these many years. As she mentioned, I've been affiliated with this. I will deny that it's been more than 30 years if asked, but it's been more than 30 years. And it is a remarkable record of success that your presence here is testament to exactly how important that is in all of our lives. So welcome. Have a terrific day. It's a wonderful and replete program. You'll have a lot to draw from, and don't miss the vendors who are assembled in room 14250 just behind this podium and just across the hall from this room, where you can learn about some of the many people who are doing good work in this sphere. Thanks so much. Have a great morning.
All right, friends, it is time to move on to our keynote speaker. And our keynote speaker today is Mr. Tom Lutkowski, who is the Vice President for Accessibility at Comcast. And in this role, Tom is responsible for developing and executing the company's strategic plans focused on the usability of Comcast's products and services by people with disabilities, as well as pursuing opportunities to further enrich the customer experience of the whole disability community. Now, there are a few things here about all the things that Tom does with Comcast, but I'm just going to tell you a couple of things about Tom that are not written here. No, but I've known him for a long time. He started off in descriptive video service. I think one of the first places I got to be aware of Tom was way up at WGBH in Boston, where some of descriptive video service was being really developed and increased in its intelligence, I think I would say. Various different kinds of things were being described, various materials in science and math, and as well as movies and TV shows, and a lot of different areas were being explored by public TV, by WGBH at that time. And Tom was a part of that kind of development. He may tell you a little bit more about that, I don't know. Then he was with AOL, and now he is with Comcast, which of course is not a provider that we have access to, but we've been able to see what they have been able to do in terms of described video. It is astounding and exciting, and we are thrilled to know that it's being developed in this country, and we're hoping it's going to get closer and closer to us here in New York City. And I want to be quiet because I want Tom to have a chance to really talk to you. So please welcome Mr. Tom Lutkowski.
Well, thank you, Karen. Good morning, everybody. So I stand between you and the real learning that's going to happen at this conference. So I don't know how that happened, but we'll do our best. I thank Karen for all the fine comments that she had, and you know, I won't admit that WGBH was close to 25 years ago, but we just keep on having fun with making technology accessible, so why stop? And there's a lot going on. So when Karen contacted me and Bill about, over a year ago, so your planning committee is hard at work at next year's conference already. I'll trust me on that. You know, they asked me to come and do this keynote, and as time went on, started to ask them, well, who's the audience? And they said, well, you might have people looking for jobs, you'll have some retirees, you'll have everyone in between. So basically, it's everybody. So that's kind of really hard to tailor a presentation one way or the other. So I'll try to do my best and give you something at least to take away. So I've spent the better part of my career at the intersection of media, technology, so broadcast TV, cable television, and the internet. And it's kind of interesting. My first two real jobs in the accessibility space, the first at WGBH, the second at AOL, kind of had two different very dedicated focuses. One was very much on the video side and media and making media accessible. AOL was clearly, you know, not only that, but the internet and trying to make our software accessible. How many people got those discs in the mail? How many people use them for coasters for a drink? Well, actually, believe it or not, that was a great marketing effort, and whoever came up with the idea is sitting on some tropical beach right now, and I'm still working. So we'll see how that worked out. But then at Comcast, I was able to bring all of this together under one roof. And a lot of the things that I started to do at WGBH in terms of writing guidelines for how to make an accessible cable set-top box, lo and behold, 20 years later, I got to implement the guidelines that I wrote and made a set-top box accessible, or at least guided a team who made that accessible. So what is accessibility? How do we view accessibility, and how did I fall into this career before it was actually even a field? Today, we're actually seeing a lot more companies focused on accessibility. There's more regulation in place around accessibility, and so you can start to see where, you know, a career is a bit more possible in this than when we were starting out in the early 90s trying to do this. So accessibility, at least in my view, is the measure of how effectively people with disabilities can interact with products and services. And that can be technology. So can you navigate a web page with a screen reader? Can you navigate your cable set-top box with talking menus? Can you navigate New York City, walking through the streets? You know, can you get into a physical space? So how effectively, the measure of how effectively people with disabilities can interact with products and services around them. So now how did I kind of fall into this? You know, it's kind of like the old hair club for men. I'm not only the president, I'm also a client. And it is true I have no hair, so I could probably work for both if I had to. But I'd like to think it was, you know, the accessibility that created the stress in making this technology accessible that caused the hair loss, but somehow I don't think that's the case. So, you know, when I came out of Boston College in 1989, I you know, was thinking I was going to be, you know, the next, you know, radio or voiceover artist. So I had a major in communications and worked for a radio reading service in Connecticut as their director of network operations for a while. We ran a 200-plus volunteer, largely volunteer-run organization, and it was a, you know, 24/7 station, and, you know, we got to play with a lot of different technology, met a lot of people in the Connecticut, Hartford broadcast industry and such. And so that was a really good place to kind of cut my teeth in that. Through some of those connections, ended up for a brief period doing production and newsroom producer at a news talk station in Hartford. But all the while, moving from a city like Boston to Connecticut, which is a great state, but from a public transportation perspective, just didn't have what I was used to and what I grew up with in college. And so always kind of wanted to make my way back to Boston. No offense against New York, but happen to be a big Red Sox fan, big Patriots fan. Don't know how that will go over here. But in any event, wanted to get back up there. And so when I did try to poke around and look for an opportunity, I was thinking about radio and what I could do and how I could break in. And so I ended up at WGBH, which was the public television station in Boston, still is, and one of the largest producers of primetime programming for PBS. They also had a radio station there. And as I was talking to the folks about what I might be able to do on the radio side, they said, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called descriptive video service? And I had heard of it, but hadn't really followed it all that much. And they said, well, you should go talk to someone over there, the director at the time, Lori Everett, and maybe there's a fit there, and because there was really only kind of part-time work where the radio side was, and I like to eat, so wanted to find a full-time gig. So I went over and met with Lori, and as fate would have it, she ended up being an alumnus of Boston College, as I was, and a 30-minute conversation ended up turning into an hour conversation. And she was telling me about all these different federal grants that Descriptive Video Service had, to Karen's point, to figure out how to describe programming for kids versus adults, how to describe educational media versus entertainment programming. And so was able to really dig into that a little bit and found that to be intriguing. How do you describe a fruit bat? This is the type of projects that we would work on. We would do focus groups with kids, and we'd say, okay, how big is a mouse-sized fruit bat? Because that's what the description said. And they'd put their hands way out wide, and it was some huge beast. You wouldn't want this thing flying around. And so we started to learn how to become more contextual, say, the size of a dinner plate or the size of a saucer, things that kids would have interaction with. And so all of these types of techniques come from research, and that research back then was largely funded by U.S. Department of Education. And so that hour conversation with Lori turned into a job as an outreach coordinator, and then later on as a marketing person, and then from Descriptive Video Service moved into another side of WGBH called the National Center for Accessible Media, NCAM. And that was the R&D arm of the WGBH Media Access Group. And there we got to play with all sorts of cool technology. Back then we were looking at CD-ROM, educational multimedia software on CD-ROM. And one of the projects I got involved with was a federal grant to figure out how to develop author guidelines to make educational math and science technology and educational multimedia accessible. And so we did a couple of different simulation games for photosynthesis and for a math game, and we were demonstrating how to make those types of products accessible. And back then we were thinking about self-voicing apps, because back then CD-ROM and that type of technology wasn't accessible with screen readers. And so if you wanted to make a math game available to someone who was blind in a classroom, you had to think about self-voicing the app. And so that kind of laid the groundwork for ultimately what you'll see in a little bit, what we've done with the Talking Guide. From that, ended up on another federal grant that was designed to author guidelines that would help cable companies and consumer electronics manufacturers build accessible interfaces for set-top boxes and for TVs and other types of consumer electronics where you wouldn't necessarily install software like JAWS or NVDA or any other screen reader. You'd have to build it in from the design from the ground up. And so that was great, and was very happy with that. And then NCAM used to have a business partner program where we would consult with corporations on accessibility. Then there was this large internet company that came in to meet with us one day, and it was by the name of America Online. I remember sitting in the back of the room saying, I have to get this gig, because I knew that was really the next logical step for me, which is how do I take what I'm doing here, but move that into a different environment. And thankfully, AOL decided to partner with WGBH, and my boss put me on as manager of that project. And that introduced a lot of interesting ideas where we were taking a totally inaccessible software package and trying to retrofit it for accessibility. We all know that when you retrofit accessibility, you certainly don't end up anywhere near as far along as you do as if you consider it from the ground up. But I have to say that the folks at AOL really were game to work with us on this, and I think ultimately we ended up doing as well as we could and made a lot of progress and did a lot of interesting things with instant messaging and other products that really opened up accessibility, not just for the blind, but people who are deaf or hard of hearing and other individuals. And then while managing that, I was brought in on as AOL's second director of accessibility, and that's where I stayed for 10 years. And in my office, we did an employee awareness campaign, and Eric Weinmeier, who summited Mount Everest and the 7 tallest summits of the world, had an opportunity to go to college with him, and so I knew him, and we did an awareness effort, and I wanted to bring in someone that could really paint disability in a positive light, and brought Eric in. And the promotion for that event, we had a poster, and it said, if a blind man could get to the top of Mount Everest, he should be able to get anywhere he wants on AOL. And you can translate that, if a blind man can get to the top of Mount Everest, he should be able to get anywhere he wants, or woman, he or she should be able to get anywhere they want on Comcast, on Spectrum, on your mobile phone, or wherever. Just apply that anywhere. And so kind of use that as our rallying cry for employees, to product designers and engineers and others, to really get behind this accessibility effort and do what they could in their day jobs to move this forward. So after 10 years at AOL, I ended up working through my network, and somebody said, hey, Comcast is looking to create an accessibility group. And thought that would be an intriguing opportunity to work for an industry that in many ways hadn't really focused on accessibility the way that many of us in the blind community and others in the disability community would have liked. And so here was an opportunity to work for a great company, the largest cable company in the U.S., to start up an accessibility group and really figure out what that meant. And a lot of that came out of what we know today as the Communications and Video Accessibility Act, or the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act, where there were certain mandates that the FCC was empowered to implement that get us some of this access. So, the ability to have a talking guide on your set-top box, the ability to have accessible what we call advanced communication services, products like email and text messaging. All of those things now are mandated to have accessibility built into them. And certainly Comcast was, wanting to know how to deal with that aspect of the legislation, but they really viewed accessibility as an engine of innovation, a component of innovation. How do we move beyond compliance to really lead in this area and innovate? And by the way, if we make something more accessible to an individual with a disability, we actually make a better product for everybody else. And so I couldn't pass that opportunity up. And in June of 2012, I became Vice President of Accessibility at Comcast. So Karen, are we on track? Is this what you were looking for, or is everybody asleep? Or
We're on track.
We're on track, okay. Would you tell me if I wasn't? That's the question. And so now at Comcast, I run a team, and we're responsible for driving accessibility across all of our products and services. And so what does that mean? It means our websites. We look at our mobile applications, and my team defines the requirements and the best practices. We facilitate connections to outside vendors that can help us with quality assurance testing and training for developers. And we think about value-add features that we can add, things like the talking guide, or how can we make it easier to access video description or closed captioning through your remote control, those types of things. And that's my team then works across the company, advising product groups defining requirements, and ultimately driving adoption of new value-add features for accessibility, or essentially ensuring that our mobile apps and our websites are accessible. The cool thing about Comcast is that we happen to own this large television network, NBC Universal. And so that not only allows us to look at things from the distribution side, on the cable side, how do we deliver services like video description, but also how do we influence and drive more accessible content. I'm not one to just kind of stay in my swim lane, so to speak. I always have to find trouble somewhere. In talking with a few folks that kind of bridge the two companies together, the cable side and NBC, we said, well, what could we do? How could we differentiate ourselves? And I said, well, how about doing live description of live musicals? No one has ever done a live primetime broadcast in the U.S. with live description. Typically, description is pre-recorded in the post-production process, and it's on a series. And I kind of threw that idea out there, not knowing that a week later I'd be on a call with 30 NBC executives pitching the idea, and they bought in. And so the producer of the show said, "Great, let's go do it. Help us do it." And so we were able to debut the first live primetime entertainment broadcast with description in December of 2015 with The Wiz Live. Anybody see that with description? Great. And then we followed that up in 2016 by describing 15 primetime broadcasts of the Rio Olympics. Did anybody see that? Great. And then we ended the year last year by describing Hairspray Live. And so really kind of digging into that live video description. So my piece of that is to really connect the dots, maybe float the idea, and hopefully that we can, have that idea catch fire, and then we can, really help the teams execute and deliver on that. So really, I'm looking at accessibility now from two ends. My bread and butter comes from the cable side, so I'm really mostly focused on the cable side. But because of the way the company is structured, and they encourage us to think outside the box and be innovative and entrepreneurial, I've been able to, in some cases like live description, be able to work with NBC Universal on these types of ideas. And so not only are we thinking about how to get more content to be accessible, but now we're also on the cable side saying, okay, once you have the content, how do you as the blind individual get at it easier and more efficient? And so that brings me to our talking guide and what we call voice guidance. So before I get into the talking guide, I want to just play a quick video for you, about a 2-minute video that essentially highlights from a customer's perspective the importance of this technology, and then layered on top of that, the video talks about the company's commitment to accessibility and how we view accessibility as a component of innovation. So let me see if I can get this video running here. Okay.
File. Add view.
Let me turn off voiceover.
VoiceOver off.
Can I just start it?
A 13-year-old boy plays chess with his dad. He touches the pieces on the board. Kristen Smedley.
When the boys were diagnosed, we didn't just want to be surviving blindness, we wanted them to be thriving just like any other child. And it wasn't until we started meeting successful blind people that We were able to pick ourselves up, understand the tools they needed, and then the sky was the limit for their potential and their dreams.
The boys hit balls at a driving range.
So we have always sought out blind role models. We got to know folks like Tom at Comcast that were changing what it means to be blind.
Tom Litkowski, Vice President of Accessibility.
So I was the youngest of four brothers, and we grew up in a suburb of Hartford, Connecticut, Southington, Connecticut. And my childhood, I think, was a pretty cool childhood. And the blindness was just a secondary thing. It was more of an inconvenience than something that everybody made a big deal about. If designed correctly, technology can be a huge leveler of the playing field. And along the way, we figured out that if you make a product more accessible, you actually make a better product for everyone else. So the role of the accessibility team at Comcast is to open up our products to all individuals, including people with disabilities. We want to have accessibility not even be viewed as accessibility. It's just part of our technology. It's just how it works.
In our experience in our life raising the boys, it's about inclusion. We've said inclusion since they were born. They're included in schools and sports and everything, but them in our own home, before they weren't able to be included in something as simple as the TV life. And now they can explore every channel like the rest of us.
Jurassic World. A movie summary appears on the TV.
Jurassic World, 126 minutes. Rated PG-13. Closed captions available. SAP available.
We want to empower people through technology. We want to use accessibility to innovate. You know, if we can make a product better for someone with a disability, imagine what that product now becomes for a customer without a disability.
The family watches TV together.
We've accomplished a lot, but we're just now scratching the surface, and there's lots of innovation ahead.
A peacock logo appears. Comcast. NBC Universal Xfinity. Special thanks to Mitchell, Michael, and the Smedley family.
There you go. So that video has received over 1.2 million views on YouTube already. And so we're not only using that to kind of educate our own folks, but to educate the world that, you know, we all want entertainment and we want accessible entertainment. And a lot of times when I first got to Comcast, you know, people would say, well, do blind people even watch TV? I'm like, yeah, we watch about as much TV as anybody else, and we'd watch more of it if we could get at it. And think about all the things that we weren't having access to, things like our DVR recordings or even the ability to record something on your DVR, or all of the on-demand content that's available. And so really that's kind of what we're trying to open up. And we haven't even talked about other things like home automation and home security and some of these other areas that are the Internet of Things that you may have heard about. Those types of things now are starting to come to the fore. And that's, I think, to be honest, even a more exciting area than the entertainment side in terms of the impact we can have on true independence. So what I want to do is quickly show our talking guide, and then if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Let's see, Victor, is there an application up on the screen now that's, let me see here.
No,
yeah,
a
okay,
dragon
perfect.
is approaching.
So,
Fear not, for here come the gallant knights to save
let's see,
us.
I don't know how I can control the volume and talk, but we're going to try this. Okay, yeah, that will work, and I'll tell you when to. So what we're going to do here is run a simulation of our talking guide. So I have a remote control, and this is what we call our voice remote, and I can press the blue button here above the menu key, and if I did that and held it in, I could say, watch HBO, or turn on SAP, or shows with video description. Different commands and different things would happen. What I'm going to show you first is the talking guide. So right above the number keypad on this remote are 4 letter keys, A through D, and they're differently shaped: triangle, square, circle, and a diamond shape. And so what we would do is press the A key, and when I do that, a help menu appears. We don't know that, but it does, trust me. Then if I press the A key again, watch what happens.
Voice guidance beta. Here on-screen text and options spoken aloud help you navigate through screens. Press right arrow button, then OK to activate. Cancel.
So this service is available today on our X1 platform. X1 is our latest generation cable set-top box and entertainment and really digital home platform. It's what we call cloud-based technology. So I'm not installing any additional hardware or software on a customer's box. All of what you're seeing is happening up in our network. The text-to-speech is up in our network, and all we're doing is sending audio files down to the box. Our whole idea around accessibility is around inclusive design. How do we build this in so that anyone can get it? If you go into your neighbor's house and they have X1, you could pick up this remote, hit the A key twice, and their box would start talking to you. You notice that we had the cancel button as the default button. That's in case the cat hits the remote on the couch. We're trying to not drive calls to call centers. We kind of frown on that. If you're a product guy and you drive too many calls to the call center, that's a career-limiting move there. So now if I hit the right arrow,
turn on voice guidance.
Now I can hit the OK button, and I can turn on voice guidance.
Voice guidance on. Press the menu button to access the main menu. The menu button is a rectangular button located 2 rows above the OK button.
So now we're giving you a little bit of information. We're what we'd call in novice mode here. I have to assume that you haven't used the remote very much if you're using the talking guide, and so we have to give you more direction. And we have other features planned that will even make it easier to orient yourself to a remote. So I'm going to hit the menu button.
Xfinity main menu. Press right or left arrows to review, then press OK to select. Guide.
So think of this as kind of the home screen, if you will, on a smartphone. And so now I can just use the right or left arrow keys, and any item that I highlight on this screen will be announced.
Saved.
So there's saved. This is where your recordings and favorites and other things that you've saved off of our network would be available to you.
On demand.
So here's on demand that I was mentioning, the 50,000 titles, et cetera, that are available. Some free content, some content you can purchase, some content you can rent. It's a combination of movies and TV shows and just a whole host of content that we never before had access to. Because literally before the talking guide, all someone as a blind person could do, as you know, is use channel up and channel down and hope that you didn't pass the show you really wanted because it was in a commercial break. And so now I'm going to open up by hitting the OK button. I'm going to open up the on-demand screen.
On demand. Press right or left arrow to review, then press OK to select. TV.
So now it's telling me how to navigate this menu, and now I'm navigating TV. I'm going to move over to movies.
Movies.
And I'm going to hit enter on movies.
Movies. Featured movies. Jurassic World.
So you can tell when we put this demo together back when Jurassic World was out, so dating ourselves a little bit here. And now if I wanted to go drill in deeper, I could. I'm going to go out to the main menu.
Jurassic World. Rent HD $4.99. Buy HD $20.99, 126 minutes. Rated PG-13. High definition available, 3D available. Closed captions available. SAP available. Rotten Tomatoes critics rating 71%. Audience rating 79%, 2015. 2 young brothers visit.
All right, now I'm going to go to the menu button. Get out of that.
Xfinity main menu. On demand.
So you can see that we give you a lot of information you want to know before you make a purchase. You might want to know what the Rotten Tomatoes rating is, or the audience critics rating, or, certainly if you're a parent, you want to know what the rating is before you sit your kid down in front of the show, and even for yourself. So all of that is valuable information that we didn't have access to. So now I'm going to go to the guide.
Saved.
And I'm going to open up the guide. This is our TV listings.
Guide.
Now remember, this is a canned demo, so what you're going to see is a simulation of what it would sound like if you were literally at home at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night.
Now playing. The Voice, 45 minutes remaining. NBC Channel 10.
So that, of course, is in Philadelphia. It's NBC4 here. And then we can move on from that.
Help.
And I now hit the A key if I wanted to turn off voice guidance. I can hit the A key again.
Voice guidance. On-screen text and options will no longer be spoken aloud.
And I can hit enter to
Turn
turn it
off
off.
voice guidance.
So this is an idea of inclusive design where you can build this in, just like what we have in smartphones today. You know, I pick up the remote off the coffee table, I turn it on, I leave the room, my wife is sighted, she doesn't necessarily need the talking guide, she can easily turn it off, and the family can coexist peacefully. Now I thought that once I had the talking guide, that I would maybe get to pick the movie night on Friday that we watch. Let me tell you, the wife still rules the remote, okay? Now, she doesn't like when I say that, but she's not here, so no one's going to tell her.
Did you say the wife still rolls?
Well, I said the remote. I just, let's be careful.
I only interrupted to tell you that we sort of have to wrap it up in the next couple minutes, so we have time for a couple questions.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
I didn't mean quite that fast.
Okay. Well, but I think it's a good segue. So if there are questions, I'm happy to take questions about anything related to...
Yeah, if you have questions, raise your hands, and David will help you, will identify the people to ask the questions. Or do we have a volunteer with a roving mic?
Yes, if I could ask a couple of our dowdy blue-shirted volunteers to go and pick up microphones, raise your hand and we'll get a microphone over to you. We'll start with the gentleman at the front table in the orange jacket.
Mike is coming.
And I volunteered to do this for Tom despite the fact that he is a confessed Red Sox fan.
Good morning, Phil McGowan here. Quick question. I live in Connecticut and currently have Cablevision as my provider, and struggling with them to provide an accessible user interface to the point where I had to go file an FCC complaint. What does the industry do amongst themselves to make sure there's some standard, or that doesn't exist right now? I was given an Amazon Fire TV with no instructions and a Motorola phone, which I'm an iPhone user, and after 8.5 hours, they couldn't teach me how to use it. And it's just been a nightmare, and I've heard a lot about you and Comcast. And does the industry, do you guys talk to each other and find out what's working, what's not, or I'm a little confused about that.
Sure, that's a great question. And it doesn't seem like it right now, but trust me, the industry is definitely moving in the right direction. I know several large cable companies now that have dedicated accessibility offices. And we're now talking about having a working group together so that we can share information back and forth on accessibility. So the neat thing about the cable industry, I guess in some ways, is that traditional cable companies, we don't compete against each other. We have our own individual footprint and markets carved out, and so it's not like, Dish or AT&T or Verizon where we would, compete against companies like that. So Cablevision, Charter, Cox, Comcast, we can, share information. In some cases, we're actually licensing our X1 product to other cable companies. So Cox, for example, they rebrand it differently. It's called Contour 2. But if you have Contour 2 and you live in a Cox market, you have this accessible technology already because it is basically our platform. So we're, think about us building an operating system for more than just Comcast. Can't really speak to what other individual companies are doing, although I am aware that work is ongoing at many large companies. And so I would say stay tuned. Better days are ahead.
Thank you.
Next question goes to Victor, whom I had the pleasure of meeting earlier today. Yes, that's Victor.
Hey, Tom, great job with Comcast. I'm a recipient of Comcast when I was in Vancouver. I loved it so much, I want to go back just because I can watch Comcast.
What's your question?
Okay,
Let's get that on a quote. Let's get that. Let's strike the part of my wife from the video, but let's put that one on the video.
The one in the print dress at the back. Next question, please.
Hi, my name's Chancey. I think video description is kind of a funny thing because when we say what documents should be accessible, all documents, what buildings should have ramps, all ramps, what programs should have video description, a reasonable amount. And I wonder, in the long term, and I know you can't do this today, Do you think it's a reasonable goal to eventually get to 100% on video description? And if so, how do we as advocates help that happen? And if not, why not?
Gotta go. Thanks very much. All right. Let's see. That's a great question. Karen said there would be some hard questions. Wow. I think technology, several things need to, I think, happen. One, we need to find a better way of delivering video description to users. Right now, we're competing against, well, not competing, but we're sharing the same audio stream as Spanish broadcasts in many cases. And so that certainly presents some barriers. I think, as the technology moves towards more internet-based technology, I see some light at the end of the tunnel there. And so I think technology will improve, and so broadcasters and others won't be forced to make choices between whether they deliver Spanish or video description. The other piece is, the labor intensiveness of creating video description today. You have to write the content, then you have to have someone voice it. Some companies have the same person who's the describer, who's writing the script, voice the content as well. Whereas, captioning is probably a little bit easier to produce. And so there's some hurdles there that we overcome. So I don't know about 100%. Off the top of my head, I would certainly not want to predict one way or the other, but I think, there are a few hurdles that we need to overcome. One would be the technology and making sure that, description has its own dedicated space in the audio stream. And then the other would be, are there ways that we can make the production process for description more efficient? And I know that there are folks that are looking at that. So I think we need to take care of those things first, and then we can talk about scalability.
We have time for one more question.
Good morning. My name is Mary. I'm trying to find out, can they do something with these TVs? If your TV goes out at home and there's no one to help you with it to get it back on track, that's a big problem. At times I have issues, and I've been asking Spectrum, when will they come out with something that will help us to work our own individual TVs and cable boxes so that we don't have to ask people or wait until someone comes home?
It's a great questions, and I think what you just saw with the talking guide is getting us there, right? So, we need to make sure that, like you have on your smartphone or other device, where the screen reader is always present, that our talking solution, our accessibility solutions are always present once they're enabled. And so I think those are the types of things that will help us. And so we're not there yet, but I think what I'm seeing in the industry is a lot of increased awareness now on this topic, and so I would expect that we'll see improvement, and that is absolutely one of the issues that needs to be addressed. When I talk to our folks, I talk about, and we're starting to look at, when the box first connects to the network, or before that, even when you plug it in for the first time. Say we mailed you a box and you just plugged in your own if you wanted to. We have to be able to talk out of the gate, just like you can with a computer. And so I would say we're not there today, but I think you're going to start to see a lot of this type of development accelerate over the next 2 to 5 years, and I can't put a timeline on when you'll see something, but I think we're going to experience an acceleration in what's possible from these companies, and that would certainly be one of those issues that we would need to address. Well, I want to thank everybody for your time and your questions, and thank Karen and the team.
Many thanks to Tom for a terrific presentation. Let me turn this back over to Karen, who will introduce our next guest.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Tom, so much. And it's very exciting stuff, frustrating, but very exciting. Friends, we have a surprise guest, I would say, who has been able to join us to make some remarks for our 10th anniversary conference here. We're thrilled to be able to introduce to you a friend of the center, a friend of Baruch College, and I would say too, a friend of people with disabilities throughout New York City. Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer is here to share some comments with us.
Thank you very much. With all due respect to David Birdsell and all the wonderful people here, I'm only here for one person, and that's Dr. Karen Gorgie. I want you to know that, just like we all are. She and I we've been on the Staten Island ferry together. We've been lots of places looking to see if the APSs work. But it's really an honor to be, and I know I'm late, but so I'll be very brief to say that presentation on technology was phenomenal, and of course one of the issues in government that is not done is I know that many government websites are not ADA accessible, and that's another issue that we all have to work on. And I also loved when Tom mentioned that the cable companies don't compete, so that might be good for their working on accessibility, but it ain't good for us to have to pay those goddamn prices, how expensive they are. Just an aside. So there are just a few things that we've been working on in the Borough President's office in Manhattan. First of all, just because of Karen's work in the past and your work in the past, we continue to try to get the APSs, which are, of course, the accessible pedestrian signals. It's never enough. It's too slow. I'm sure there are people here or will be from DOT, but we really need to push on that, and it's not something that I think we have conquered. So just let you know, we started it. We have legislation. We have more legislation, but we're not done. Number two, the issue of curb cuts. Now, we did with our office a survey from the bottom of the Broadway all the way to the top. And needless to say, we found that fewer than 10% were fully compliant. Far too many lack warning strips. Sometimes curb cuts were simply missing entirely. And I don't need to say that this is a danger for anybody who's blind, but also a danger for anybody in the city of New York, older, anybody. So we need to get DOT on that case. I know that you'll hear a lot about Access-A-Ride from your program. I have been hearing about Access-A-Ride for the last, I don't know how many years. I don't know how many hearings I've been to. And I appreciate the people who work at Access-A-Ride because I know they're trying. I can give you the name of almost every driver, and I can give you all the complaints. But the issue is we just have to keep plugging away, but I hope that coming out of this conference might be some alternatives, some other ideas, et cetera. It is an endless discussion, but unfortunately it has to be had. The other issue, of course, is technology, which you heard something about. I know that you have some, I would call it the bicycle, driverless cars, et cetera. Who owns the streets? Who should own the streets? How do we make sure that people are safe? And we did actually have a forum on driverless cars because whether it's good or bad, it's coming, I think, to the United States in different forms. We have to know what is safe and what is not. So I think it's great that you're having that discussion. Finally, I just want to mention on the issue of employment. Many of us share a love and respect for Susan Scheer. Susan Scheer is a disabled advocate for many, many years, and she's now the new CEO of the Institute for Career Development, having been in government for a long time. And I think you can look forward to working with her because she's one of these kick-ass type people who gets things done. And she does not wait for others, as we all know, in terms of advocacy and policy, and she's brilliant. So look for her in terms of some of the employment issues that we want to get done for people who are disabled. So I'm here to say thank you once more to the CCVIP, but mostly just the work that you have all done, and to have this conference and this huge turnout for your 10th anniversary is a real credit to everyone. Congratulations, and I look forward to hearing what the workshops have to say because we need to implement whatever you have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Borough President Brewer. Let's just give her one more hand. And for all our presenters this morning,